comments made by Ms Belay related to Part 2. Hearing loss comes under Part 2. So I just remind members we're on Part 1.
Under Clause 6.
Clause 6? Okay. But certainly it's mentioned in detail in Clause 52. But anyway, I've called Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I want to talk to just 3 points in relation to Part 1. The first is the removal of Section 31 under Clause 8. The second is the disentitlement for people who wilfully injure themselves or commit suicide. And the third is the great leap backwards that the Minister has decided to take in terms of work capacity. Let me start from that one and just make 3 points in relation to the changes of work capacity. It did remind me of the good old days under Bill Birch, who I must say Nick Smith's making look quite good in comparison. He's certainly making Murray McCulley look good in comparison. The old days of work capacity, people used to say work cap, kneecap, because what happened to injured workers is that they would be quite seriously injured, get minimal rehabilitation, and then go through a shonky assessment process, be told that they were fit to work for 30 hours a week, and they'd be moved to independence, was what ACC in the olden days, the previous national government, moved to independence. And what that meant was that they either went on the dole or they went with no income at all if they were married to an income earner and didn't meet the criteria for any income from our social security system. This is a great leap backwards to those old days. We've seen a change to consideration of their pre-injury earning capacity. So what we will see now is somebody who is in a high income job, it might be a Minister of the Crown, is in a high income job, they have a serious injury, they're not able to take on that responsibility anymore, they're not able to do their job, so they get a work assessment and they're determined that they are able to work for 30 hours a week as a cleaner in a minister's office. Big income gap between what a minister earns and what a cleaner earns in their ministerial office, but that will now meet the criteria for being assessed as fit to work because their pre-injury earning capacity has been biffed out. Instead of the assessors having a requirement to consider their pre-injury earning capacity, the word has been changed to may, and the officials confirmed to the Select Committee that the word may means they may or they may not consider their pre-injury earning capacity, and that, Mr Chairman, is an absolute outrage. It is outrageous to forget what a person has lost in terms of how much income they are able to attract because of their skill and hard work, which has been lost as a result of an injury. So that's the first great leap backwards in the work capacity. The second is the move from having 35 hours a week, which is a livable wage for most people, back to 30 hours a week. Who can afford to keep their family if they are the primary income earner on 30 hours a week? Well, I guess the minister can, because actually a minister doesn't have to work any hours a week, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of them don't earn any hours a week. But when you're a wage earner, then 30 hours a week is not a living wage if you're the primary income earner in a family. And the third great leap backwards, just in the single clause in the whole of Part 1, is the fact that the requirement that the job for which the person is being assessed is a real job that exists in New Zealand. Let me give you, Mr Chairman, an example of what used to happen and what this legislation says can happen again. In the olden days, I used to get people coming into my constituency office saying that they had been assessed as being fit to be a car park attendant, but there is not one single job of car park attendant in New Zealand. Another one had been assessed as being competent to be a lift operator. Well, I do remember the days in James Smith's in Kirkcaldy and Staines and Ballantynes and Christchurch, where you'd get into the lift, Smith and Co. I don't know that I ever went into the lift in Smith and Co, to be honest, but we did have lift operators in those days, and they would say, which floor would you like to go to, sir or madam, and they'd push it, and when you got there they'd tell you what was on that floor, just to make sure you got it right. Mr. Chairman, we don't have those jobs anymore, so having an assessment that says you're fit to be a lift operator means nothing if nowhere in New Zealand, Mr. Chairman.
The Honourable Dr. Nick Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I want to